Good morning. Good morning. How we doing out there today? Steve Henn, you are smiling faces looking right back at me. How you doing? You're always first guy to join. Always prepared, ready to go. What's going on in your world? I'm putting you on the spot.
I've been busy, lots of Zillow connections, scheduling showings. I got a couple deals that I'm in the mix of. I have one that I'm working with Semper on finalizing the financing. Had a little hiccup there, so they're working their magic. Have another one pending on a condo.
Any
Yeah, go on.
anything crazy going on your deals? What do you got for us?
Well, the craziest part is the one that Semper's trying to put the fire out on. So, large down payment, small purchase price. He has about over a third down, but credit issues, and we're trying to get him. He paid off everything quickly, and we're doing the rapid rescore. So, he had to get letters from creditors proving that he paid all these creditors off so we can try to work some magic and get that credit bumped up to get him qualified and keep this deal alive. So we've been hustling and doing things and talking to the listing agent, attorneys, trying to keep this alive here. And it looks like there's some light at the end of the tunnel finally this week. We should have some answers in a couple days.
On this
So
on this one, Steve, is it one where we put together something quick? Why is credit coming up so late in the game?
that's a great question. I didn't anticipate this being an issue, on a $225,000 purchase with a third down, large down payment, steady job. So pre-approved from multiple lenders, all pre-approved. Um, talk to them about going with Semper for the versus a nationwide, larger one that we can't put eyes on.
Yep.
Agreed to that, and I'm not sure how this, wasn't forecasted from day one with the credit score, but
I just
it
I just want to kind of highlight it, right? Like if we've got somebody that's marginal and we talking and yeah, they're pre-approved, but they make one slight adjustment. They do one thing wrong. They buy the wrong thing. They don't pay something in it. Your credit, I don't know if you guys are tracking it yourselves. There's obviously a lot of free ways to do this. And I would encourage you guys, whether through a credit card or freecreditscore.com or something to know what your own credit scores are. And I've got a bunch of notifications that'll hit me. And little changes really can move that score around. So when we're telling the stories, right, and trying to get people to get pre-approved early and talk to the lender early, these are the stories that we want to use. Had a client, thought everything was fine. We're not sure exactly what happened. His score changed 5 or 10 points. And then at middle of transaction, we're running into some hiccups. At the end of the day, I hope this one's going to be fine. And you're going to tell the story that they were fine, but I don't want you to have that extra added level of stress, right? This is the conversation with the buyer. I don't want you to have this extra added level of stress that my client just went through, right? So I know you're 3 months out, 6 months out. Let's talk to the lender. Let's see where you're at, right? Let's see how much room you have for a cushion, right? If you're at a 700 credit score and we know the product that you're trying to get in, you can get it with a 680, great. We got 20 points to play with. But if we know the product that you're going after, you need a 700, let's see if over the next few months we can get to 710, 720. Let's be very critical of every little move that we're making. So we got a little bit of play. Anybody else want to just talk on mortgage or these kind of conversations? I think they're so critical. And I think buyers, they get nervous up front to just get pre-approved early. I don't know what it is. But it happens. Anybody want to chat on this, or what the conversations are sounding like? What's the story that you're telling to get your people talking to a lender as soon as possible? Adam.
Morning. Yeah, just 2 points here. The first is, we had like a credit card that hadn't had a balance on it in a while, and then it had a balance on it, and it was just the annual fee. So we closed the account, and that cost me 10 points on the credit score. And I'm paying attention to it right now because I'm trying to refinance the house. So just a couple of tools you can use out there. So Credit Karma is probably the most popular. It's free. It is definitely nowhere near what you are going to get for a score on the in the mortgage world, but it is a great way to actually monitor your credit and see what's going on. The other big thing is Experian is one of the 3 credit bureaus. You can get a free account with Experian.com, and you can obviously pull your credit and monitor it as well. So those are 2 really good tools. And the last thing, so I have a great lender friend of mine, and as we're going through the mortgage, I was in the low 7s and I wanted to be a little bit higher to obviously take advantage of the best rates. And this credit score thing, I've never really seen it before, but he can literally put in, okay, we're going to close this account, meaning we're going to pay it off. We're going to take $3,000 towards this credit card, $7,000 towards this credit card. You hit calculate and it does everything to like the dollar. So then he sends me a PDF and says, okay, do these 3 things, 4 things, whatever it is. And this is what we can expect your score to be. And he said it's accurate within a few points. So I didn't realize that tool existed. I mean, I knew they could recalculate scores and rapid reset them, but it's pretty detailed. And so if you're talking to your clients about trying to get that top tier credit score, I think he said after 760, it doesn't matter, but 700 to 720 was one interest rate, 720 to 740 was another interest rate. And then there's also a difference when you're buying a home in interest rates between condos and single families, which I just learned this the other day. Even if it's your primary residence, even if you're putting 25% down, they still ding you on interest rates. Because I don't know, I didn't really agree with it, but he said because your property is subject to kind of the look and feel of everyone else and how they take care of their spaces. So, you know, if you get pre-approved on a single family and you end up buying a condo somehow, that could be a quarter of a point more, and now you could be out of your ratios. So just make sure you're dialing everything in as early as possible and share these stories with your clients so you can be as prepared as you can as the buyer's agent.
Lauren, you were had your hand up next.
From the buyer standpoint, the fear that comes from getting pre-approved early is a stress and anxiety of hearing no, right? Of you have this dream, you have this want of purchasing a home, you can't, right? Or you're bad, or you've done bad things like that. It's a stress and anxiety around hearing the no. I know that from a lot of conversations I've had, right? Because a lot of times you hear people asking, hey, are you pre-approved? They say they want to do it, they don't do it, and agents continue to push, have you worked on pre-approval, have you worked on pre-approval, and stop getting responses and wonder why. When at that point, if you've asked really more than once without getting a response, you need to totally switch it up and go to, hey, I assume, from my experience around this, that you have additional questions, thoughts, feelings on why you're choosing to not do it right now, right? Play into those stories. Usually it's because they're stressed, there's that worry there, and needing to go deeper in understanding. And then usually topping that off with a conversation that most lenders, if you're speaking with a good one, are not just there for a yes or no. They're there to provide that insight, exactly like Adam was talking about, those kind of tools where they can give you exactly, you need to do this, that, and another thing that you might not figure out on your own looking at some of these free websites. And I guess really it all just comes down to being that resource and going that step deeper.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with your theory around the no. I think that probably is the greatest fear, right? A little bit nervous that I'm going to get rejected when I do try and go and get it. And I'd rather delay that, right, and keep the dream alive when we know it's in their best interest to find out now, right? Hey, let's find out now that you can't buy, and let's put a plan in place over the next 6 months. So I just did a quick ChatGPT because I knew there's some information regarding how the credit scores work that I think if you haven't really dove into this before, it's pretty interesting. So payment history, which is I think what we all think about credit as is like, do you pay your bills, is a big factor. It's 35% of it. But coming in at number 2 is credit utilization. It's at 30%. So this is a mistake that I made early on in my credit career, which was I had my business credit card and I had my personal credit card, and I paid them off every single month. I've never had, gotten myself into credit card issue. The problem is maybe I had a $10,000 limit on my credit card and I'd be using it up to 9,000. No big deal as far as I thought, right? I got a bill of 9,000, I pay it off, I'm back down to zero. I didn't get hit with any interest. But when it comes to credit utilization, anything over 30% of what your limits are is giving you a ding, right? So I'm almost maxed. So I didn't go over, but I'm almost maxed. So when a credit card company is looking at that, they're looking at these, or these scoring companies are looking at it going, man, this guy's right up against the limit. So you'd be better off raising the limit on that card and getting additional cards. Have 2 or 3 other cards that maybe you use for certain little things, and you keep those below 30%, right? And every 6 months, I've now got an email reminder to reach out and try and get an extra little bump on my credit card, right? Can I get an extra $3,000 credit increase? Can I get an extra $5,000 credit increase? So that now I'm using nowhere near, right, my full utilization. So that was number 2, the utilization, 30%. Number 3 is length of credit history, which is 15% of your score, right? So just closing out accounts, no bueno, right? Keeping those credit cards open, believe it or not, as long as it's something that you're not having to pay fees for, or, some annual fee, and you're just not using it. The longer that these accounts have been open, the better off you are. That's 15% of your score. 10% of your score is your credit mix. So that's, is it just credit cards, or do you have mortgages, auto loans, personal loans, right? So showing a good credit mix and paying them all on time. And then new credit and hard inquiries is the final 10%. So if you're applying for a lot of new cards and stuff like that, that could ding you in the short term. So hopefully a couple of little nuggets in there that'll help you guys on your personal finance journey. And then by playing this and then using these stories, right, to help your clients out. Any other thoughts around credit scores, something that you're using, something that you've learned that you'd want to share with the group? Steve.
So just to reiterate, this buyer that I was talking about with this credit issue went to the big lender. They were like, no, based on your current credit score, we can't help you. Whereas Semper came in and did what Adam said. They put all the, hey, if you pay this much here, there, they gave them a laundry list and said, if you do exactly these, you're going to get to that score. We're confident you're going to get where you need to be, and we're going to get it done, which we just got the finalization that all those are confirmed where they need to be yesterday. And then it takes 3 to 5 days. So I'm pretty confident after Adam saying like, hey, it's when they say do this, it's going to get you where you need to be. It makes me feel a little comfortable now that we might actually get to the closing line now.
Love it. Love it. And ideally what we want to do, right, is we want to do this 6 months ago, right? That would be a significantly better position to be in. So now, Steve, you've got this story to tell of, hey, I don't want to be doing this mid-transaction like my previous client. What I learned from that is I tell all my clients now, do this way up front so we don't have to be doing this. And, the stress of going through a transaction is plenty of stress for you. So if we can get some stress early, get the credit stuff out of the way, because the transaction itself is going to be stressful enough. Any other thoughts around credit, tools, tips that you guys have learned that you want to share? All right. Well, I did want to make mention of one of our guests today. We have attorney Kate Garvey from Garvey Law with us this morning, and she's going to be joining us every Tuesday. Welcome, Kate.
Good morning, everybody.
And so one of the things that I'm trying to do to level up this call is, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to have attorneys. Fridays, we're going to be doing, we do our finance Fridays, going to bring some appraisers on, some home inspections folks, any kind of specialist that you guys want to see, let me know, and we'll do our best to bring them on. But I figured I'd bring Kate on, one, just to see, does anybody have any specific legal things that have come up lately that you just love to get an attorney's take on, or anything while we've got her. And I've also asked Kate to maybe talk to us about some of the things that she's got going on that she's seeing kind of that could help agents out. So anybody have anything that you want to bring to Kate's attention, or
I do, Steve. Sorry, I just have a
go ahead,
problem
Joel.
raising. Yeah, it's something that I came across yesterday on the closing, and I hope it's going to be taken care of today. But I know it's, as a new agent, I didn't know this, and maybe other people don't know it or assume that it's different. Certificates of good standing in closing when dealing with registered business entities. And in the timeline that it's required, I found out yesterday it's 60 days that they're good for, and it's no longer than that. So, things like that will stop the closing from happening or slow it down.
So land court, if I think I know which one you're talking about. Land court requires your certificate of good standing to be no older than 60 days. Regular registry, that's not the case. You can go up to 6 months. Usually if it's an LLC that this is the first time buying property, first time, being in a transaction. I usually require a newer certificate of good standing because you do have to record that. But for land court, they're a little bit more strict, right? Anything in land court has been through court already. So even to get a deed recorded is hard in land court. I usually send all of my documents to be reviewed by land court. Just an FYI, land court could be a pain. But for certificates of good standing, in land court, it needs to be 60 days or younger. But not so much in the regular registry of deeds unless you're a newer business.
So Joel, it basically, did it hold up the closing and they had to go get the new certificate? Is that what happened on this deal?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
We had a closing yesterday, but the certificate's gonna be brought in this morning. So pretty soon we're gonna get the okay. But it was just something that I had no knowledge of, and I just didn't understand it. So I just wanted some more clarification on it.
Yeah, ultimately, a certificate of good standing is just letting everyone know that they're in good tax standing and good business standing, right? You have to, an LLC corporation, they'll have to renew, they have to do an annual filing and let everybody know that they're still in operating condition, and the managers are the managers and things like that. So ultimately, the certificate of good standing is just letting them know that there are no issues, there's no tax issues, and that the business is still an operating business.
Thank you
And
so much.
Kate, do we know if this is only the case if the LLC itself is making the purchase, or what if I'm just like I run my own business and I run an LLC, it's an LLC, I'm self-employed and I'm just buying a house. Are they going to check for that my business is still in good standing, or this is only if the business is making the purchase?
Only if the business is making the purchase. I would assume if you're using a lender, they'd probably make sure your business is in good standing. But no, if you're buying a house at Steve Rovithis, they're not going to ask you for, Rovi Homes LLC information. It's only if you are the actual LLC's purchasing or selling.
Yep. Lauren, I see your hand up.
So we've had a couple situations lately, so good time to ask it. When there is a property that is being conveyed with an additional lot or plot of lands, or maybe it's a couple that are all selling together, what is the best way to present that? Can more than one lot transfer together? Do they need any of their own documents? Like, would there be more than one purchase and sale? And just what is your process for making sure that those additional lots actually get transferred with the sale of the property?
That's interesting. So usually if there's more than one lot, it's listed on the purchase and sale agreement, right? 123 Parker Street, lot 1, 123 Parker Street, lot 2. A lot of it depends on how it's written in the deed that's recorded in the registry of deeds. If it's 2 separate deeds, if the one deed has the 2 parcels or whatever. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to answer the question completely without having a specific situation. But usually when I get a purchase and sale agreement, they should both be listed on there. If not, I usually add that, let's do an addendum and make sure, because you don't want that slipping through the cracks, which has happened. Someone's like, oh, this lot was supposed to be conveyed too. And you're like, it's not a hard fix as long as everybody's on the same page. It's a, correction of a deed. But I usually ask for it to be somewhere in writing, whether it's on the purchase and sale or in an addendum. And if it's not in the purchase and sale, if they're somehow combined on a deed or whatnot, I mean, it'll come up in the title search usually. And that's another time where I will be like, hey, are we conveying both parcels or things like that? But if 2 family members want to combine a parcel, I mean, I would do it all on the same purchase and sale agreement unless your lender has an issue with that. But I would put it all on the same purchase and sale agreement.
Follow-up question to that. Sorry. So if it was 2 deeds and they end up on a single deed, do the lands then become combined? And is there any benefit to leaving them separated versus combined if you wanted to do something like that?
I think it kind of depends on the use of it, right? If you're combining it to just have one big piece of land to build a house, have a farm, I think combining it into one deed makes more sense. But like, you literally list the parcels, parcel 1, parcel 2, so you can decipher between the 2 pieces of land. But I think I would want it all on one deed. Other people may disagree with me, but I would put it all on one deed. Unless the uses are different, you know what I'm saying? Like, if one's a commercial, zone for commercial and one's residential, maybe it's smarter to do 2 separate deeds. I think it's kind of situational, but I would say if one person's buying those 2 things, to put it on the same deed. If that helps. I know it's kind of not the best answer, but it's kind of a situational thing.
Any other questions on deeds or purchase and sale or combining? Anybody have a follow-up and need some clarification, or, hey, I did a deal and this is what happened? And I see your hand, Steve. Go ahead.
So I just had a recent situation, which Lauren may have jogged her memory to ask these questions. So the situation particularly was a rehab property, and then adjacent to it with a separate deed was a building lot. And it was being, they were looking for a combined deal on it for both of them. So, of course, as a newer agent, my question was, how do I put them both in the offer? Which was just, I believe on the addendum to say that, hey, this parcel of land, 0 State Street in this town is also part of the deal. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. But we went over all these different scenarios. Do they want to keep it separate? Which, yes, they do, because they wanted to build on that as well and sell a home on that as well. So it wouldn't be a combination situation where you're putting the 2 into one. So it would be, they're separate and they would stay separate. So any thoughts on that, on purchasing and doing a buyer's, an offer?
I don't know. I don't write the offers or anything like that. So I mean, if they're selling it as like a package deal, there's, obviously I think you could write an offer for the package deal. I think where I come in later is, okay, making sure we have 2 separate deeds, recording fees, all of that kind of stuff. And then if there's a lender, they understand what's going on too. I had a deal in Connecticut. I don't remember who the agent was. It was a while ago. But there was 2 parcels, and they were across the street from each other. And we had to do a lot. We had to do a lot to satisfy what the lender actually wanted. So we had to record like 3 deeds, combining them, doing all of this stuff. But me personally, I guess I don't know how you'd write the offer, because I don't do that. But I mean, if it's coming as a package deal, you could write the offer as a package deal, but obviously make it specify that there's the 2 parcels and that those 2 parcels are included in this deal. I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
it does.
me,
And
to me, Steve, you can put whatever you want in an offer, right?
Yeah.
We could buy 10 pieces of property in one offer, right? It's is the lender going to be okay with it? Are there going to be some deed restrictions or some reasons why some of this stuff is going to want to be separate? But when we're writing up the initial offer, we're trying to dictate or detail out exactly what we're trying to do, right? And then let the attorney come in and kind of give their 2 cents. Let the lender come in and give their 2 cents. But I don't see any reason why you can't put it all in that initial offer, group everything together, call out exactly what we're trying to do so that everybody's on the same page. And then, if there are some struggles behind the scenes with the way that you wrote it up, they can deal with that later.
Yeah, so I guess for like newer agents, it seems like, oh, it's a big, it's going to be a big pickle, and it's really not. It's real simple, like you said. You just make sure it makes sense. It's clear in your offer on the addendum of what you're trying to do. One other tidbit that I learned was when my buyer went to the lender, they specifically wanted to know if there were two separate deeds or if it was all on one, and they preferred it to be in two separate, which was the case because when it's one, you have to separate it. That there's a little bit more to separating properties than if they're already separated. So that was something the lender really wanted to clarify and make sure there are two separate deeds. It makes their life easier, I guess. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're in a situation with, a bundle deal here and they're going to ask that.
Kate, I know I had to ask you to kind of maybe come prepared with a story or two. We've got a few minutes left. Is there anything in particular that you're just kind of seeing in the real estate space right now that agents should be weary of, or hey, I wanted to share an experience? Anything that you've got that might?
So I guess I can't emphasize enough making sure that like your clients are ready to close. 9 times out of 10, the buyers are good to go, right? They're ready for their closing date. They have the moving truck packed. They have all that stuff. I guess my comment more is about sellers, and making sure your sellers, or even if they're not your sellers, are going to be ready for that closing date. Because what I am experiencing a lot lately is that people are not inclined to give a use and occupancy or allow people to move in early. So if things are going to get delayed, because I just had a closing last week where it was a buy sell and my sellers were supposed to be up by 10 and they didn't get out until 5. People were homeless for a night. It turned into a whole thing. But you know, I don't call and say, hey, are you guys ready to move? I think that's an agent thing to do, and staying on your clients and making sure that they are moved and ready to go, and then it doesn't delay closing. Because now I'm finding out that most people, if you ask for use and occupancy or something like that, say no. Maybe they'll allow you to move some stuff in, but they're not allowing the people to actually move in. So we don't want homeless people, even if it's for a night. I know it's, I've been the bad guy where I've said my clients aren't agreeing to a use and occupancy, but it's their right to do so. They have to protect themselves too. So just, make sure your sellers are good to go, because it could delay a bunch of things, the snowball effect that I know we all know. And if you don't know, you will. Just make sure they're good to go, because especially on back-to-back closings, it can mess up the entire day and leave people very unhappy and searching for a hotel. So I have realized that people are not agreeing to use and occupancies that much anymore. So just something to think about.
Does anybody want to kind of share what the conversation sounds like with their sellers? Are you telling them, hey, let's be ready to be out the day before? Because I do agree. I think a lot of sellers are just trying to do everything that morning, and that becomes extremely difficult. And they don't want to necessarily maybe pack everything up the night before or pay for movers the night before, but doing it the day of, it's pretty difficult, right? To get your movers there and get everything packed up and do your closing with your attorney. Anybody want to speak to this? Any heavy listers that want to say, hey, this is how I'm typically handling? Are we encouraging them to be out the night before? What are those conversations sounding like?
It just, Steve, excuse me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, why put all of that? I mean, it's going to happen anyway, right? So we're already in contract. They've got to get out. They've got to broom sweep it or whatever. And that's just, I mean, you've got to stress it. There's no nothing is going to go right. It's like a wedding. You just expect something to go wrong, and you've got to prep them. I mean, the sooner the better. Just get them out, let the house, um, be ready, and any issues that are going to arise at the time when they pull all their stuff out of there, you're gonna find it. So you got to deal with anything that comes up too. So
Yeah, I'm more curious. Are you guys asking your sellers to be out the night before, or is it, hey, just let's go 7 a.m. morning of? What are we doing?
I can tell you what my realtor.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Nicole. I know what you're going to say, Kate. I'm just in reality. What are you guys doing? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Nicole.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times they don't have somewhere to go the night before, but I usually say try to get everything out, whether you utilize pods or moving trucks or whatever, get everything out except for the bare minimum. So it's a mattress on the floor, whatever you had for dinner last night, and then get that out the next morning, because closings are usually in the morning, especially if you're trying to close the same day for both. So the smoother we can make that happen, it's fine. If final walkthrough, when they go through, there's a mattress and a few things left behind, but you don't want to have to be packing your whole house the day of.
Yeah, I think that's a happy medium, right? Hey, let's do everything that we can the day before. If you can't afford to, sleep somewhere else, you don't have somewhere else to stay, then yeah, let's get the bare minimums out. I think that's a good piece of advice. I think that's a great conversation to be having. So, thanks for sharing that. All right, Kate, any final words before we wrap it up?
No, not. I'll
Awesome.
see you guys next week. I'll come up with some
Awesome.
good stuff. Maybe I'll have some good stories.
Great. Yeah, jot them down during the week. We appreciate you coming on, and I think it's going to just level us up if we've got some legal
And here's
advice
Adam
coming our
walking in
way.
this like beautiful sun over
I
there.
know.
Jerk.
All right, let me get up our availability for training today. We got trends and tactics. We have building a referral-based business, Instagram for normal people, psychology-driven sales, and then an attraction class. So 5 different opportunities to level up your game today. Take a class, learn something, and come back and share with us. Appreciate y'all, and we will do it again tomorrow morning. Take care.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.